For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very, very special edition of the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast with Kay Miller. Wait, Kay Miller?
Kay Miller, I know.
Miller?
What's happening?
Wait, not the rock star? Wait, no, literally not the rock star.
Not the rock store. Not the rock store.
Not the rock store or rock star. Yeah. It's Kay Miller, who happens to be there's an expression, the better half.
That's true.
And she literally is the better half.
I'm going to just stick with that. Okay. But you know how Steve Miller talks about the rock star. Did you know that he was actually named after Steve Allen?
Steve Allen, the comedian?
The comedian. For those
I did not know that. I never knew
enough
that.
to remember. So his name is not Steven, which everyone tries to write Steven. No, it's Steve. And his middle name is Allen, because he's named after Steve Allen. So there is a name thing there. I'm still laughing about how we talked to Dermot Mulroney.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, yeah, Steve, I'm the other half, and someone.
Yeah, the other half and the better half, and if there's a marketing half and a sales half, Kay, who has been a guest on our podcast several times and has an amazing book herself, of course, Uncopyable Sales Secrets.
I happen to have it
right here. We're both here. If you're watching the video, which we have a video on the YouTube channel, we're both holding it up, and it's an amazing book. And Kay is an amazing person with incredible insight on B2B sales. And so here we are. Awesome.
Here we are. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it. And we came up with a great topic. And it's really more of a conversation starter, I would say, because we don't know exactly where this is going to go. But we're starting with something that happens out in the sales world that I'm sure all of you listeners are familiar with. But you might not have really sort of deep dived into why this happens. Okay. And here's what I'm talking about. You all who are listening probably can think of an incredible salesperson that you know, or more than one. And chances are, unless they're an aberration and just like an amazing, like something happened and they stay at the same company for literally their entire career, which we probably know some people that have done that too. But they've moved around a little bit. But when they move around, their customers follow them. If they're staying in the same business, their customers follow them. And so that's the conversation starter, which is why? Who are they? Like, what have they done that the loyalty is so strong that it's actually not with the brand that whatever product or service a customer's buying, but it's with a person. Like, that is remarkable.
Right.
How does that happen?
Well, I know I've talked about that in the book, and I know several people that have moved to different companies and their customers have gone with them. So unless the product is horrible, you have a perfect product and a horrible product. Otherwise, most products are good enough. And when you think of any product or service, there's going to be something wrong. Maybe it might cost more, or the lead time might be longer, or there might be some other problem. But if you have a salesperson that takes care of you to the level where you don't have to worry about anything, you know that you are really being taken care of. I think that's where the salesperson, that the brand that you build as a salesperson and the relationship really is what wins you that business. And, I call it the uncopyable advantage. Well, right before we started recording, we talked about the uncopyable advantage. And I said, I don't have a chapter in my book that says the uncopyable advantage, because it isn't one thing. It's a lot of things. And some of the things that we've already talked about, and some we will talk about today, right, Dave?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that's in your book is actually a story about a salesperson that I knew, because we talked about it, and you actually called this person and interviewed them, Leslie, I think.
Right.
And the way it came about was, I do a ton of voice of customer interviewing, and I called a customer of my client, and they said the following thing, quote unquote, "Oh, we didn't hire company X, we hired Leslie." And it was such an interesting concept. And so I dove into that to ask them more questions. Well, why? Like, what are you saying? But over and over again, in the conversation, they weren't referring to the company. They were referring to the person. Like, "Oh, what do you like about doing business with this company?" "Oh, well, Leslie does this, Leslie does that, Leslie does that." That's interesting. What do you make of that?
Well, it just, like I said, the loyalty that you have to somebody that really takes care of you, who really cares about you, I think is stronger than the loyalty to a brand, which can probably be boiled down and called a thing. You're buying a thing, and it could be a product or a service, but relationships are not really with products or services. I mean, companies try to build relationships with their customers, but relationships are really about people. And that's where you and I, as salespeople, have the advantage of really connecting with our customer. And the story about Leslie, she promised what she called a white glove service. And it's great to have a language. I mean, in the book Uncopyable, Steve's books and mine, we use the word uncopyable. We use moose as our target market. We use rock star to say how we want our customers to feel. And for Leslie to have a label for what she offers, the white glove service, honestly, Leslie can go to another company and offer a white glove service. And that could very well be more important than the product or price. And I think in this case, the customer did say that, they're paying a little bit more, but it's worth it. So
yes, they definitely did. Well, a few things that you just said really, really stuck out to me. One was you used the word care. Like, oh, like, isn't it nice when someone really cares about you? Like, legitimately and authentically. Like, you notice that. That's maybe not that common. And
I
so
I think it's true. And in your book, your book is very similar and conceptually to my book. Marketing is everything you do, right? Sales is also everything you do. And as you said, knowing that someone cares about us as a customer, I don't think it is that common. It's like, common sense isn't that common, or, a lot of the things in my book are just back to the basics, but people don't do them. So it really isn't super complicated, is it?
No, it's not. But I do feel like it's a little bit of a mindset shift. Like, the subtitle of my book is How Serving Others Brings Success in Business and in Life. And I heard you say something else you used the word rock star, but you used it in a very different way. You said you wanted the customer to feel like a rock star. You didn't say you wanted to be a rock star, but that's what we all think, because many of us have been programmed throughout life from grade school, high school, college, early career, to be so self-centered on ourselves and our careers, and you're going to be a rock star, and I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be that. But how about complete mindset shift? You make someone else feel like that. And then, the end result is that you end up being really successful too. But it wasn't, it was cause and effect. I mean, it was like your focus was on someone else. And
Exactly.
that was your success.
Yeah. And I think, again, this is great. I think it's wonderful that people are listening to this podcast and having these concepts reinforced, because they're not really new. And I think deep down, you use the word serve. If you serve, it will come back to you. It's karma. You and Steve introduced me to Michelle Jones, who was on the podcast. And I told you that some of our clients said, "Who is she? She is so smart."
Yes.
And then Steve said, "She should go to the National Speakers Association." And I said, "Boy, if you go, I will show you around. I will introduce you to everyone I can. I will help you in any way I can." Well, I did that because I want to do it. And, she's a great gal. I really believe in helping other women. But, that will come back to me. I don't know how or when, but it will. And so really, by giving first, you do get it back. And when you try to take first, that's not what happens. So it is a mindset shift. And, the good news is you win in the end anyway, right?
Absolutely. So customer wins, you win. I mean, instead of like, oh, I win. Customer, yeah, they're good. I made that sale. I made a great commission, et cetera, et cetera. It's a different way of looking at it. So if you think of the uncopyable advantage, which is, let's say you said there's many elements. You don't have a chapter in it, and it's sort of many elements. But if you had to list a few, and this is about what a person is doing that leads to the situation that we started off with, which is, they're at a certain company, they leave, move to a new company, customers follow because they're following the person. What has that person done? Like, what are some of those elements that you can, kind of help with explaining to a few people that may want to do this?
Sure. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is trust. That person, we said you have to care about your customer. Well, they need to know that you care about them, and that is trust. I think the best way, there are several ways of building trust. First of all, you have to listen. And a lot of salespeople, me included, we love to talk. And I think a lot of salespeople talk, and it's just because they're so excited. They're so sold on their solution. It's not for any nefarious reason, but they just, oh man, they're just bubbling over with enthusiasm. And, we're just talking about, no one's bored when they're talking, but people get bored when they're listening. So you really have to force yourself to listen to the customer so that they know you care about what they think and you care about them. Then the other thing is really.
So can I just
go ahead.
Just 2 seconds.
Sure.
I just want everybody to remember the phrase that you just said. No one is bored when they're talking. They get bored when they're listening. So how about we listen? We ask questions that are open-ended. We listen. We learn from the customer what they want. And then we work on delivering that. And also, when you said trust, I thought of like the times that I've been talking to people and they explained very enthusiastically about what they wanted with great hope that I would be the person to help them. And I had to say, you know what? I've heard what you said. I think this is what you need. It's not me. But I know some people that might be able to help you. I would love to introduce you. It's not me. I'm not the right fit. Like, does that kind of thing instill trust?
Oh, obviously. Yes, for sure. If you can tell someone there's someone else better than me to help you, that is a huge trust builder.
So this is a weird thing. Like the greatest trick to sales is telling someone that we're not the solution for you.
And you know what? Know how I remember that? One of my favorite movies that I actually thought about putting in the book, and Steve said, nobody's going to remember that movie because I'm so old. Miracle on 34th Street. He is working at Macy's. The Santa at Macy's starts telling these kids, oh, we don't have the toy you want, but you can go to Gimbel's or some other store. And it was a huge score, a huge win for them, because the customer is like, wow, you're not just trying to sell me something because it's what you have. You want to fill my need. Miracle on 34th Street. Of course, there's a whole other story, but I love that part of the story.
You put that in the book. You should have put it in the book. Steve, I'm sorry. We overrule you.
Book number 2 is coming.
It's in the next book because that is a beautiful example. Okay, I interrupted you because you talked about trust. What are some other elements?
Well, I'm always amazed, and I bet you are too, when someone asks you to call them back and you call them and they say, wow, thanks for calling me back.
Right. They're surprised.
Yes. Wow. And so quickly. And I had somebody recently that was actually in a position of selling me something. I believe her service was booking me on podcasts.
Yes.
Well, meanwhile, I had already hired someone to book me on podcasts. So when she reached out, I said, thanks for reaching out, but I found someone else and I really appreciate you staying in touch. That's what I teach in my book. And she emailed me again. She said, I can't believe you took the time to tell me that. Thank you. So it's really just living who you are, treating people, the good old golden rule. But really for a customer, following through on what you say you will, that's being brilliant at the basics. And your advantage, if you're listening to this, is a lot of people don't do that. So do what you say you will. And you're really going to get ahead in the sales game. Hard to believe.
It really makes me wonder, like, of all the people listening, and I don't know the answer to this. Are we preaching to the choir? Is everybody that listens to our podcast already hardwired to serve? Or if they're not, how does that mindset shift happen? Like, how does a person that's more of in the traditional sell mode at any cost, how does that transformation happen? Do you have any examples or advice?
Well, I think, again, when I talk about salespeople who talk so much, it's not always for a bad reason. It's because we are all fallible human beings. And that's why I think being a lifelong learner is critical to being successful. And I've been in the sales game for a lot of years, and I can't say I'm perfect at it. Someone just asked me on a podcast, how do you deal with rejection? And I said, not very well.
Wait, but you wrote a book on sales and cold calling and all that kind of stuff. And so, but you still don't deal with rejection very well.
Right. Well, and I'm, this is going back to your question of I think anyone listening to this podcast wants to do the right thing, but, we all get busy. We all get into habits. Maybe we're just not organized enough to remember to call people back. So I feel like we're constantly learning And yeah, if you don't care about what your customer thinks and you're, door-to-door salesperson who's moving on, you're not listening to this podcast. People who are really wanting to build long-term relationships that will really help them succeed, you are listening, and all of us are students. The very best salespeople in the world are not perfect. So, it's just keeping this stuff top of mind and remembering, oh yeah, there's a person behind this email that's trying to sell me something. That person is sometimes me, and how nice it is just to be treated like you'd want to be treated. So I think, to me, it's just constant reminders, constant learning. We develop bad habits. We all need to be reminded.
I met somebody recently who I'm now working with a little bit, who's an incredible networker and just knows many, many people, and is sort of constantly connecting other people to his own connections. And in many cases, he is not benefiting personally out of all these connections that he's putting together. In fact, it's sort of a running joke that, people say, oh, he should be in this business. He's put so many deals together. He should be compensated, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but he does it naturally. And because he loves people and loves making those connections. And there is a karma aspect to it, like what comes around goes around. There's no strings attached to anything he ever does. Yet, because he is so generous, things do come back in spades, like big time, and not in a predictable way at a predictable time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's huge. You just have to believe. I mean, how many times have you had someone do something nice for you? And when you say, what can I do? They say, pay it forward. I mean, that just gives me chills, right? And people like you're the guy you're talking about, he's a success. You don't see somebody who's so generous and connects, without trying to get something. And oh my gosh, he's a homeless bum on the street. No, it comes back.
Incredibly successful business person, and he's in a certain field, but he's far afield. I mean, he's like he's in everybody's business. I mean, it's just amazing.
That's great. And I'm not there yet. I would like to be more of a connector, but again, we get in our world, we've got our to-do list, and that's, again, it's listening to podcasts like these to keep us having an open mind about, oh yeah, the bigger world, and what can we do to make a difference, because that does come back. So
if I'm listening and I'm one of these people that, like, I have a heart that's good and I want to do what you're advising, but maybe I'm not as organized as I should be, or I'm not. Do you have any recommendations on either tools or approaches that somebody can just start using? Like, literally tomorrow they can wake up and they can do it, and it's going to help them to accomplish a little bit of what you're talking about.
Well, it's funny. Back in my early days of sales, I used the good old day timer, and I listened to Brian Tracy, cassettes, and he had his systems, of prioritizing, and in a way I really liked that. It was simple. It was, tactile. It was right there. However, if you ever lost your day timer, you were sunk, right? So now we have so many digital tools, but, I think one thing that I deal with is that when I'm on a roll, talking to people, having good conversations, I don't want to spend the time to put the notes in my CRM. I use something called Copper. So if you definitely need a CRM of some type. Yeah. And there are a million, the one we use is not very expensive. You can go with Salesforce that is super robust. But, I think I'm not giving you a super short answer, but keep a list, use your CRM, and be disciplined enough to put the information in for your, the details.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, is Copper the one that transcribes your voice to text, or no?
I don't know. I haven't used that functionality, but I do a lot of voice texting, emails. Now you can do Google Docs. I haven't used Copper with that. I'll tell you what
Okay.
Copper does that I love is that when you type an email and it links with the person in your contact. So you have all those emails in one place.
Okay, right. HubSpot is
Yeah, a lot of those do
similar
that. So I would
that a
say,
lot of people are doing. Yep.
and so if you're with a company that's small and they don't have a CRM, it's really worth investing. I think Copper is like $30 a month.
Yeah,
So definitely.
this is like pocket change in the whole scope of things, folks, because these are tools that will be with you for years and really help you.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, in the old days, the day timer, that was just so much more labor intensive because you had to carry everything forward and write it all. But, I mean, it worked. It worked. But now there are so many tools you can use and just find the right one.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it is interesting because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the Leslie that you interviewed that I told you about that changed, that had that great quote.
Mm-hmm.
We hired Leslie. She's actually moved on from my client.
Yeah,
from my actual client. And it's in a related field, and I wouldn't be surprised if some customers are following her because this is a person who we all, there's different descriptions and philosophies about from different generations about how much we should work and work-life balance, but how dedicated are you? I mean, we've heard a lot of stories about people that get texts on their vacations or, at night from their clients who are in trouble and they need help. Are you going to ignore that or are you going to follow up on that? If you follow up on it, then you end up like Leslie, right? And how about if you even think proactively, like there's this story about, I think it wasn't Leslie, but another of her coworkers who there was a hurricane in their client's region and they offered their house up, oh, they didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's about caring.
And the cool thing too, I think is, you attract those type of people back. When my dad got sick and, he passed away in November, I had so many of my clients reaching out to me, sending cards even and caring. It's like, like you said, you get what you give. So, the more that you can take that to a higher level. I mean, I also remember back in the days when I was in physical sales, outside sales, I'd go to the customers. I loved going in and people would say, "Oh, Kay's here," because it was just like they're sitting there in their offices doing, whatever they're doing. And, it's kind of I'd bounce in and have something funny to say, some story of what I'd done, or whatever. So
did you bring donuts? That's a very important question.
I did bring donuts. Oh, for sure. I did.
You did see.
Oh, gosh, donuts.
This is maybe a thing. Donuts.
Who
doesn't like donuts?
Who doesn't like donuts? I don't know. Who doesn't like donuts?
I guess, there is.
Maple bars. Love my maple bars. Don't eat them very often, but I love them.
Okay.
So make it fun. Make it fun. This is, if you can choose a fun salesperson or a boring one, who do you want?
Right.
Yourself.
I've been working a lot in the construction industry and companies that cater to the construction industry and architecture industry and all these. These are people that buyers that need continuing education credits. Mm-hmm. And they also, this is going to sound so old-fashioned to a lot of you, but lunch and learns, okay?
Yeah.
It's a thing. And I'm telling you, it has not gone away. And it's actually, if anything, post-pandemic coming on strong because
That's
now we can go
know.
back, we can get out in the field. People need those continuing education credits or whatever. So you bring food with you. Food is important. It's pizza or subs or here's a great idea. Ask the people what food to bring. Like, What's your favorite food?
There
And
you
is
go.
anybody allergy sensitive? And is anybody gluten free in your office? And then bring something for everybody instead of donuts. Like somebody is probably like a sugar addict and they can't eat donuts and it drives them crazy. And they're like,
Right.
oh, you brought donuts.
Yeah.
Right.
Diet.
But what if you brought like something else, like a gluten-free bar? I mean, it's like, how thoughtful. Like,
Right. That's
do
a great
that.
tip to ask.
Do that.
What would you like?
Show up and then teach them things of value about your products or just generally trends in the industry. Like, help them.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that.
Good. Good. And again, just like my book I talked about and your book and the podcast, you might hear, oh, those are a lot of great ideas. Pick something from this podcast, pick one thing and try it and use it, and you'll be ahead of the game.
Yeah, I agree. That is a perfect spot for us to say, okay, cut. We could go on, obviously, talking for a long time about this. And this is a little secret. Usually when we stop recording, folks, we do go on and talk about this stuff forever because
I know
it's like our
Steven's
lives
Dave,
and we love it. And we're like, oh, that was amazing, blah, blah, blah. Did you ever hear this story about? So you won't be able to hear that but
all right,
maybe
but
next
tune in
time.
next time. Thanks for letting me take over Steve's spot.
So this is a cool thing that just happened, folks. It was not Steve Miller, not the rock star. It was Kay Miller. Now, one thing that is in common, you're Kelly's mom.
Yes.
So Steve says, I'm Kelly's dad. And he also says that he's a marketing gunslinger. So are you a sales gunslinger?
Oh, you know what? I wish you wouldn't have asked me that because I don't know exactly what to call myself.
Would you be a sales blank?
If anyone has an idea, I don't want to call myself a guru. But if anybody has an idea.
Yeah, because Steve's a little bit of a, self-proclaimed cowboy. That's the gunslinger in him.
Yeah, comes in from out of town.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing. And maybe you're a little bit different and, everybody's different. So, okay. Next time, we're going to hear of what the adjectives are or the descriptors.
Okay, I'll work on
You are Kelly's mom.
I'm Kelly's mom. She's going to be 30 soon. I can't believe it. So I hate to admit that because now I'm probably at least 50.
Yeah, at least, but you look about at least 30.
There you go.
You're probably if you and Kelly were lined up, it would be very, very difficult to tell you apart.
Kelly did say one time, she said, Mom, if you're going to lie about your age, you should actually lie older. Because if I say I'm 40, people say, gosh, she kind of looks like crap for 40. but if you lie and say you're older, then they'll say, wow,
okay.
Really?
That's honest.
So I'm 80.
But, okay. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kay.
Thanks for having me on.
For sitting in for Steve and filling that seat completely. And that was great. So you all have been listening to the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast with Dave Loomis. Steve likes to call me the voice or the Dave Loomis.
The Dave Loomis.
I'm not a rock star, but we've been with Kay Miller. This has been great. Thank you all. And
thank you so much, everybody.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing, keep on selling.